All right, so welcome everybody. I'm Misti Dragano. I'm with First Degree. We are one of the proud members of the More group of companies. And today we're gonna have a little bit of fun. I don't want this to be one of those boring seminars, and we're gonna bust some myths about PSAs. So let's go ahead and dive in. Just to give you a little bit of background, like I mentioned, First Degree is a member of More. We are what some like to call the sizzle to everybody's fundraising steak. So we really focus in on the marketing, communications, and media relations side of a broad marketing and fundraising integrated strategy. So we've been working with many of the More agencies, many of the More clients, and I know on this call we have a little bit of everybody in the fundraising spectrum represented. So this just gives you a little bit of background on who we are and what we do. So like I said, today we're going to talk about PSAs. First Degree has been helping our nonprofit clients create, distribute, and understand the impacts of PSAs for about 7 years. We got into the business when one of our clients said, "Hey, can you help us?" And like every agency, we said, "Sure," and then decided to figure out how to do it. And we've been really building out what we think is one of the best PSA platforms in the country today that really provides all of the tools and resources, the analytics, and the experience that our nonprofit clients are looking for to help take their messages out to the mass audiences. All right, so let's just dive right in. PSAs are not memorable. Myth or fact? And I'm going to sit here and wait till somebody chats a yes or a no or a myth or a fact. So anybody? Anybody? Nick, can you get someone to say myth or fact? What do you think, Nick?
Miriam, Les, and Barb have said myths.
Okay. All right. Well, they are correct. PSAs are some of the most memorable campaigns that have been in the marketplace since, the 40s, 50s. They really kind of took root in the mid 70s and 80s. As a child of watching television during that time frame, I think you can recognize any of these. I will tell you this up here in the right-hand corner is the Keep America Beautiful campaign that launched in 1971. It was designated as one of the top 100 campaigns in the 20th century by Ad Age. You can see that PSA campaigns are not just run and put out by nonprofits. Many of the federal agencies put out very memorable campaigns. Specifically, if you don't know who the Crash Test Dummies are, and they're not just a musical group, they really launched, the Department of Transportation launched that campaign in to really get people to start wearing seatbelts. And as you know, that has really become just kind of a given now. When a lot of us were younger, seatbelts were not used. This campaign really was a very instrumental in being a change agent for that. This is Your Brain on Drugs. You kind of remember that one. Toys for Tots, this little boy in the Toys for Tots campaign. This campaign is probably 30 years old, if not more. It still airs today, and if you haven't seen it, you need to look for it this holiday season, and it will bring a tear to your eye. So really, the point here is a PSA campaign, like any marketable campaign, marketing and fundraising campaign, needs to hit all the markers on being creative, innovative, stand out, and it can make and will make a difference. Okay, so I know on this call we have folks who work at nonprofits who are responsible for fundraising. We have folks who work at agencies who help their clients with their fundraising strategies. And so the question is, I'm a fundraiser. PSAs are not part of my strategy. That's the brand people. That's the folks on the other side of the office or on the second floor, not on my floor. So, fact or myth? All right, I know you guys are out there. Nick, what's the verdict?
We have one myth. Others?
All right. Well,
Cheryl says it's a fact.
Cheryl is correct. Actually, they are part of your strategy, so it's a myth. PSAs must be an integral part of any fundraising strategy. What I love about this chart, and we use it often, is it really does show the totality of all of the different tactics that need to be considered when launching a fundraising strategy. And so, PSAs work and fit into that broadcast strategy. So it is an opportunity to engage audiences and kind of prime the pump for direct response television. It is a great opportunity to educate people when they're watching TV or listening to the radio about your mission and what you do, so that when those fundraising dollars come in and are spent for ads and search engine marketing and search engine advertising and direct mail, your individuals and your donors have already heard about you. So it's really that top of the funnel strategy that helps make your fundraising tactics more efficient. Okay, so PSAs, when I talk about PSAs right now, the traditional kind of channels for those are broadcast TV, radio, out of home, print. You'll get some things like digital. There's opportunities to do paid placement there, but the earned media opportunities with PSAs in that TV and radio space. So fact or myth? People don't watch TV anymore. Why am I bothering putting PSAs on my local ABC or the CW station? Because nobody's watching it. They're all streaming. Fact or myth?
Okay, we have one myth.
Mm-hmm.
Myth. Three myths so far. Thanks, Les, Barb. Cheryl still watches TV. Philip says it's a myth.
All right. Well, you guys are smart. So you must have had a good lunch and are coming back there.
Yep. So
it is a myth. I love this chart. So this is put out by Nielsen, and this shows the usage, so how people are consuming content. It is the third quarter of 2019 compared to third quarter of 20. A lot happened last year, but what's really important to notice on this is your donor audiences, which is your 50 plus. They are still consuming and watching TV, listening to the radio at the same levels now that they have in the past. And we've been looking at this chart since maybe 2016. And these numbers really have not changed. 6 to 8 hours of traditional broadcast TV and radio content consumption. What's changed is it's not that they're shifting as much right now, but they're just consuming more. So they're also spending time on Hulu and on Netflix and watching other content and consuming content from other sources. So it is really important to recognize that traditional TV and radio, you got to meet your audiences where they are. Yes, there's all these different opportunities to consume content, but this is still the primary area where people are consuming content, and you don't want to be putting all of your eggs in one or two baskets. So connected TV absolutely is an interest, and it is where people are, but let's remember where they're really spending most of their time, and that is on the traditional TV and radio side of things. All right, fact versus myth. No one's really doing PSAs anymore. Yeah, that back in the 70s and 80s, and those campaigns that you showed me in the beginning were big change agents when you only had 2 or 3 stations to watch. So they were power for them, but nobody's doing them anymore. Fact or myth?
Okay, we have a myth. We have Philip says it's a myth. Amelia says myth.
All right, well, you guys are smart this afternoon. Yes.
Myth.
Not only are they doing them, they are doing them in record levels. So last we looked at, which was middle of last year, there were over 1,000 different PSA campaigns that Nielsen was tracking on a monthly basis. So when you think about the volume, one of the things that you as a nonprofit or you as an agency who is helping your nonprofit clients, you have to remember is the creative has to be innovative. It's got to stand out from a crowd. So networks have a ton of opportunity to choose from PSAs. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to help rise to the top so that your PSAs and your PSA campaigns can get the most exposure out there. All right, fact versus myth. the creative of my PSA campaign needs to appeal to my donor. I mean, if we're going to do this, it's got to support fundraising. So it's got to be a creative that really speaks to my donor, has that more emotional, urgent sense of urgency, desperate need to the messaging.
Okay, Les says he's going to say myth for everything. Barb says fact. Other thoughts? Okay.
All right, well, Les, that's not the best strategy. I'm going to tell you. It is a fact that it has to speak to your donor, but I got a couple buts on this one. So remember I told you there are over 1,000 PSA campaigns that are out there. Well, how do you get on air? How do you get on TV and how do you get on radio? You have to first appeal to the guy who is at the TV station, who's responsible for community service, responsible for putting PSAs on air. So it's really important when you're thinking about the creative that it is, again, you got to stand out from the crowd. It's got to be unique. It's got to be different. And you have to position it as something that a media outlet is going to say, you know what, my audience really needs to hear this and really needs to learn about this and really needs to understand this. And so when we work with a lot of our clients on the creative side of the house, we really are challenging them to think differently, to think about what the local community, the local audiences are looking for, what the stations are looking to take down to their local audiences when they're creating their spots. And it's another but. I've had this conversation numerous times over the past 6 months to a year about this kind of a little bit of a struggle sometimes with a brand message versus a fundraising message. So let's just kind of step back a second. So some organizations, their brand messaging is really looking to be more positive, more uplifting, more future focused and aspirational. When we all as fundraisers know those are great messages, but to really get the responses that we're looking for most effectively, the call to actions and the messaging needs to be a little bit more emotional and have a stronger sense of urgency. And there's a lot of times a struggle internally and externally with how to bridge that gap in messaging that's going out into the public. And PSAs can really help serve that role of bridging the gap between messaging and for brand and messaging for fundraising. And I'll give you a perfect example. We have a client that really wants their brand message to be more forward focused and speak to the outcome, the positive outcomes of their work. But on the fundraising side, specifically in direct response television that we're working with them on, we know and have tested and have shown that the messaging needs to be more sense of urgency and despair and not despair, but so much of a, if you don't act now, there's no hope for these individuals that they're serving. And so where PSAs have really helped bridge that gap is we take the direct response creative and reposition it with some of the more softer brand messaging. So now you have this creative that sits in the middle, that's out in the marketplace. It looks and feels like the fundraising DRTV creative. So it's supporting fundraising. So now when an individual sees one or the other, they're kind of connecting the dots and will be primed for a fundraising message. But some of the imagery and the messaging and the content internally is a little more aspirational and hopeful. So it's more connected to the brand and where that message is trying to appeal, which tends to be more to the up and coming donors, your millennials and that audience. All right, moving. Any questions? I'm going to pause there. Any questions? Just chat. Nick will let me know what's going on. All right, so I thought I would take a moment and just give you a little bit of an example of a PSA that we put together for one of our clients, Paralyzed Veterans of America. They are a longstanding client of First Degree and the Moore family. And they really kind of had the challenges that I was talking to you about. They really have a cradle to grave donor cultivation strategy. So their current donors, which are the boomers, the creative that appeals to them most is imagery and messaging around helping veterans from Vietnam and before. So that older veteran who is kind of towards the kind of the retirement stage of their life and really helping them with their benefits and making sure that they're getting the medical care that they need. That's what messaging works for their current donors. But when you look at their future donors, the millennials, that message of helping an older aging veteran doesn't respond to them. What they respond to is the younger, the post 9/11 veteran, and helping them get back to get their lives back and get back to work and get back to getting out and about and living their life to their fullest. And so PVA had to straddle those two messages of having their fundraising engine continue to speak to their current donors with those messages that work best, but yet wanting to build strong brand awareness with their future donors. And to that point, we did a brand study with them, and they knew that there was a gap in awareness and understanding of who PVA was with that kind of millennial and future donor. So the creative that we came out with, and I'm going to show it to you in a second, is a good example of bridging that gap. Okay, Nick, can you tell me, are we sharing the right screen or not?
Looks great.
Okay, great. So apologize for that, folks. But so as I mentioned, PSAs really are and should be an integrated part of your overall fundraising and communication strategy. And this campaign it was taken into digital, it was taken into their events, it was taken into their direct mail fundraising. It was a fully integrated campaign that still is in the marketplace today, and as a fact is about to be rolled into some new channels that they're about to launch in the next couple of weeks. So more to come on this campaign. And to give you a sense of the results on this campaign, I'll tell you a little story. I just found out yesterday when the leadership of PVA saw this creative. Again, they're more of that current donor mindset. They thought, I understand where you're going, but I don't think it's going to work because it's not who we are and it's not what appeals to us. This campaign, from a PSA perspective alone, was one of Nielsen's top 10 creatives that ran through 2019. So back when I told you have over 1,000 different campaigns that media outlets can choose from, this one was one in the top 10. And it was appealing for several different reasons. It was high energy, it was new, it spoke to a different audience. We were very proactive in how we placed it and reached out to regional sports cable networks, for example, to make sure that we were hitting that targeted audience, which was kind of the up and coming future donor. Any questions? Just add them in the chat, and Nick, if you got any, just let me know. All right, let's get back to facts and myths. Let's be honest. TV advertising is a tough business. PSAs really are only being played in the middle of the night because the paid advertisers are getting all the sweet spots. Fact or myth? Last, you're going to say it's a myth? Any facts out there?
Diane says myth. Les has said myth to everything. Philip says myth.
Well, in fact, it is a myth. It really does depend, the results will always depend on the creative, the distribution strategy. But this chart right here is an average of all of our clients over the past 3 or 4 years. And it doesn't change that much from client to clients when we're involved with both the creative and the distribution, because we've got really strong media partners and they know when we give them something that their audiences are going to want to see it. So a couple of things I did want to point out. Yes, any campaign, you can expect between 10 to 20% of the times that spot airs to be in that kind of middle of the night category. There are some people who are still watching TV and still listening to radio then, but it is small. But look at think about where your current donor is in the spectrum of their consumption of television and radio. Get a lot of great pickup in that morning when you've got the TV on, your local news, and you're getting ready to go to work or you're getting ready to have your cup of coffee. Ton of daytime placement, which is when kind of the DRTV donor or that older retired donor, potential donor is at home. Get a lot of pickup too in that leading into the evening time frame. Obviously, we don't get a lot of pickup during prime time. That is where all the advertisers flock, but we do get it around the kind of 3 big prime news times. So again, it's really important to make PSAs be part of your strategy because you've got to meet your audiences where they are. And so it's important for us to make sure that you get airings, 24/7 around the dial. All right, fact versus myth. Timing is everything. Does it matter when you put out a PSA? I guess is really where we're going. Is it better to do it at the beginning part of the year? Is it better to do it around a big campaign push that you have, or maybe around the holidays? What are your thoughts on, and is timing everything in terms of getting a PSA out the door?
We have 2 facts and a myth.
Okay. So on this one, in our opinion, it's a myth because to us, strategy is everything. We have put out PSAs in every month of the year. And really what makes them successful is what I call the 3 big key factors. Innovative creative, we've talked a lot about why that's important. Proactive distribution, and then insightful analytics. And I'm going to get to that one in a second. Let's talk a little bit about how to distribute a PSA. So PSAs are not a field of dreams. You can't just build it, create it, put it on your website, and cross your fingers and hope that people come and take it and air it. You really do have to have those strong media relations where you are picking up the phone, calling your local media contacts, asking them to play it, explaining to them why it's important for their audiences, and making sure that they continue to keep you top of mind and continue to keep your creative in rotation. And we have a whole team dedicated to building those relationships, both at the local broadcast TV level, at the regional cable level, and the radio side of things, and even at the network level. All right, fact versus myth. I can't measure the effectiveness of my PSA campaign, or I can't measure it, so therefore I don't have one.
Okay, we have a myth. Catherine, Les, Philip, Diane, all myths.
All right, so it is a myth. You can measure it. And let me talk a little bit about how we measure and understand value of PSAs. So first of all, we work really closely with Nielsen, and we monitor every spot that's aired. We make sure that we know exactly when it was aired, what time, what station, what day part, all those details. And we dive into that on a regular basis. For those of you who know me, know that I am a numbers geek, and these charts get me all excited. But really the value there is looking at that and understanding, where are my PSAs airing? How is that impacting my fundraising in those markets? And we've worked with several of our clients to take the PSA data, the understanding of when spots aired and what the impression levels looked like, and layering that over top of their key fundraising metrics. And we have seen value to that. So this, I'll give you a couple examples. One of our nonprofits, we had PSAs air in a really a high concentration of a couple markets. And then we went back and we looked at the direct response, the direct mail data in that market. And we looked and saw that there was a higher response rate to the direct mail in that particular market after the PSAs started airing, both compared to the national average as well to before the PSAs started airing. So we saw a correlation and lift in response on direct mail when we knew PSAs were heavy and active in a particular area. This chart right here shows one of our longstanding clients. These are quarters of web traffic. And you can see there was a time when they didn't have PSAs. There was a time when they did. And there was a time when they went and pulled them off because they weren't quite, because of several different reasons. And you can see the correlating lift in web traffic before and after the PSAs. And we really looked deep and we saw that there wasn't any other corresponding big changes during that time period that would have led to the impact on their website traffic. So I will admit it is difficult as a fundraiser for you to say, put a PSA on, I want a unique URL, and I'm going to judge the impact of that PSA creative specifically on the traffic that comes to that unique URL. That's difficult. You got to consider PSAs as that top of funnel. I like to say they plant the seed and they help provide additional touch points and awareness so that when your fundraising channels do come in, they're operating more efficiently. And we've seen that in some of the data and the analysis that we've done for some of our clients. All right, I'm going to try this one more time. I'd like to show you another sample of one of our clients that we put out there. What I like about this creative is a couple things. So to give you a little bit of backdrop, MAD, as you know, is dedicated to eliminating drunk driving on our roads, drunk and drugged driving. They had a super strong partnership with Uber, which, as you can imagine, they both have a mission to keep drunk drivers off the roads. So MAD and Uber worked together to put out a holiday campaign called Reasons to Ride, which was a beautiful creative that was being put together specifically for a digital campaign. And when we saw that, we said, you know what? Can we take that creative and repurpose it as a true traditional TV broadcast PSA? A couple things that were unique about it. It had Uber logo kind of front and center in the creative. We challenged ourselves and said, you know what, it's important mission, and we think our media partners are gonna like it and give us a little bit of a pass on the fact that there's some corporate branding in there. So we were testing the waters. We weren't quite sure. So we had a version with the Uber logo and a version without it so that our media partners had a choice. But what we really liked about this messaging is that it was creative. It was going to stand out. And again, back to selling it to your number one audience, which is the TV stations. We put a lot of time and effort explaining to them why this was important this particular time of the year, which was going into the holiday season. The holidays are the time where there's the most drunk driving accidents from Thanksgiving to Super Bowl actually is the peak time. So we really did position this as a public service announcement. So I am going to show this to you and then we'll take it from there.
I'm good, man. Yeah. There's no one on the road right now.
Yeah, it shouldn't take too much longer. There's no one on the road right now. Home, straight shot home.
Yep. Straight shot home. You're drunk. You okay? It's all good. I do this every weekend.
But I'm late.
It's all good. I do this every weekend.
I'm good, man.
All right. So what I loved about that campaign, just to give you a little bit of sense of the results on it. So it it is challenging to have a creative that has a very short window. And this one had a window from early November through February. So it went on and off the air in that time period. It earned over $3 million worth of ad value for MAD. And it really did a great job of reaching their targeted audiences. When we looked at the networks and the stations and the programs that it played on, it really reached and resonated with that millennial audience. And of course, their corporate partner was happy too to have all the extra exposure. I use that as an example because I think it's important to also ask the question, which is kind of where we're going into next, which is, your creative for a PSA can really come from all different sources. All right, so we're done with our facts and our myths. I will answer some questions afterwards, but I know I hope some of you are thinking, well, it may not have been, and it's not part of my fundraising strategy today, but I really like to start getting that ball rolling and to start making it part of my strategy. So I'm just going to give you a couple of tips and tricks and tools to kind of help you have those conversations. So that's number one, which is you got to start the conversation. So if you're one of our if you're on the nonprofit side and you are responsible for, a fundraising channel, let's definitely, I highly suggest starting that conversation, reaching out to and identifying kind of the comms person within your organization who is responsible for broader marketing and communications. Talk to them about how there can be some synergies between what you're doing on the fundraising side. How we can layer a PSA strategy in to help both. The source of the creative. So PSAs do not need to be an expensive endeavor. In fact, it's probably one of the most cost-effective ways to get your message out to a broad mass audience. So, where does the creative come from? So I've mentioned a couple different options and things to think about since we've been together. Number one is other channels that you may have. So if you're doing direct response television, we spend an enormous amount of time with our clients who are direct response TV clients. We take that creative and we just cut it down into shorter segments, tweak the messaging on the end. So instead of saying call now and give, it's go online and learn more, or visit our website, or call and learn more kind of a message. So it takes the ask out of it. And that is one requirement from a PSA perspective. Second example is, like I just mentioned with the MAD example, they worked with a corporate partner to get their PSA creative out the door. If you have existing video footage that can be, like I said, with PSA, that creative, that unstoppable stuff had been used for other purposes a couple years ago, and we just kind of pulled it off the shelf, gave it some brand new life, and now it is a core part of their messaging platform. So I want you to challenge yourselves and challenge the folks around you to figure out creative ways to find those video assets. And then it's just really important, some tips. Make sure that you have a strategy. Don't just come up with a creative and put it out there. Make sure that you think through how it connects with your fundraising, how it connects with your brands. We've got some clients that we're helping set up some testing before we even launch a PSA. So they've got a couple key markets that they want to improve their fundraising, or their another one was face-to-face, but some fundraising tactics in specific markets. So we're going in and heavily focusing to try to get placement in those markets so that they can then measure improved response rates based on the PSA support. And you can measure PSA value and impact. And so before you get launching, create those KPIs and keep track of them. All right, I will stop sharing my screen, and this is my name and number, and I will send this, Nick will send this out to you if you'd like it. But, we're here as a resource. Like I said, we live, breathe in PSAs, and are happy to answer any questions at this point.
And while folks are typing furiously in either the chat or the Q&A, I'll ask one question that I'd had, sure. Which is, so people have been sitting at home for about 12 months. Viewership's gone up, and I would imagine that TV stations are probably showing more public awareness, PSA type content to be civic minded during this time. Do you feel like there's a COVID bump in PSAs and PSA viewership? And do you think it will abate?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. So we absolutely saw a bump in response to PSAs during COVID, and it really depended on what the message. So we had clients who very quickly came out with new PSAs that spoke to what they were doing, both here in the US and around the world in response to COVID. And those that the pickup and the interest from our media partners skyrocketed on those. We did have some clients who, just by the nature of their mission, weren't really involved in any kind of COVID related response. And I'll be honest, they took a hit. They lost airings because stations were rotating them out of rotation and airing time and putting in the stuff that was more impactful and more directly related to what was going on in the country. So yes, and viewership, as you all know, skyrocketed too when we were all locked down. So viewership is back in line, or back to kind of normal, I guess would be a whatever our new normal is. But people are still, they're getting out and about, but they're not changing. It's not like they stop watching TV and stop listening to the radio. So I feel like the bump, and we're back to a little bit more of a normal sense of viewership and pickup. One of the things that also, we didn't talk too much about this, is we do a lot of out-of-home PSAs. So what's interesting about that market is, there's a lot of billboards, a lot of bus shelters, a lot of out-of-home marketing that's out there. Advertisers kind of wax and wane in interest of it. So we had a lot of our several of our nonprofits get good placement pick up last year during COVID, which you're like, well, what's the point? No one's driving. Well, no one was driving in some markets. People were still getting out and about where they had to. And once those spots got up there, they stay for quite a long period of time. And so now, as people are getting back out into the marketplace, we've got a lot of out-of-home creative around the country that is going to get a lot of good viewership.
Another questions come in. Do you consider different PSA creative in rural versus urban areas?
It's a really good question. I see Phil asked that one. So we have and can, depending on the marketplace. We haven't done a ton of creative differences. What we are doing, rural versus market, we do have some clients that are very regionalized. Like we have one client that we're specifically doing PSAs in the state of Washington, and we did launch a kind of Washington specific PSA campaign, and then we had more of a general national one. We have done with some of our other clients in the medical field, we've done creative that it was the same creative, but the end slates were more tailored to what they were doing specifically in that market and where people could go for help in that market. So we do try to tailor it as much as possible. But let's be honest, the best creative is the one that can be more broad and get the most play nationwide. Any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank you all for spending, thanks, Les. I want to thank you all for spending some time with Nick and I this afternoon. If you have any questions or just want to chat about how PSAs can help support some of the work that you're doing, whether it be within your own organization or for one of your clients, just give me a holler.